that attitude,
Yes,
other
and
than
there may not be a serious problem, as I think there is. I mean, my perception could be wrong.
Right. Yeah, good example, thank you.
Amy, I wonder if there's, I know you don't have a longitudinal study over time, but I wonder if there's more family conflict now than there was 50 or 75 years ago, when we had fewer material possessions, when women were more in the home, when we weren't as mobile, so siblings were local, and whether you can learn anything from the history of this. I gather there's no research back in the 50s or 40s on family conflict.
No.
But what's your impression? Is it higher now? Do you think that these changing factors, higher divorce rates now than there were, whether these things might fuel more conflict now?
Definitely. I think we're living in a more complicated world. Our families are more complicated. The healthcare system is complicated. There are just so many more dynamics that people are living with. And you're right. What's that?
We talk to each other immediately, almost immediately from around the world.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Information is more readily available, which creates conflicts as well. So there's no research that we know of that was done back then, but I suspect that conflict is more of a potential now, and it will be into the future as families are more and more stressed.
I think a neutral mediator is the solution if you can get family members to cooperate, but they may not want to.
Sometimes they don't even want to meet with a mediator, so you can't even get them to do that. So that's a good solution if you can get people to the point of actually meeting and having that family meeting. Right, yeah. Someone else had go ahead, Julie.
Having just gone through this about 3 weeks ago for the last 3 months, I think the thing that I was most surprised about was when they brought our mother home for hospice. We agreed to do home hospice, and they gave us an hour prep, and they left.
The hospice
team
team
with
did.
all these rugs and all this stuff, and my sister and I looked at each other and said, "Holy shit!" I think I'll take that right now.
Right.
We're now in charge, and that really surprised me that for home hospice, wow, you're totally in charge, and I don't think we were quite prepared for that, and there was no going back. I mean, we made that decision, and I think it was. I mean, if people ask me now, would you choose home hospice if you had the money to do home hospice or in hospice? And I don't know what those other options looked like.
Right.
We had not enough time to explore them, no money to really see much about that. I don't know, because I felt suddenly very responsible for lots of very important things, and I was actually a nurse's aide 30 years ago as a high school kid, and so I was trying to remember how to do all that stuff. And I realize every state is different as to what is provided, but we saw somebody 3 times a week for 1 hour. And of course they said call whenever you want, but there was nothing to call about. It was call and come and help me, but that wasn't an option. So that just blew my mind that the family is suddenly very much in charge and with very little training.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have misconceptions about what hospice provides. And it is a nationwide kind of thing, kind of the model of care, especially when it's in the home. And people think that the team is going to come in and kind of take over and spend a lot of time there, and that's just not how that service is structured. So that's another one of those, you might kind of call it a deficiency or something that's lacking within our healthcare system, is that there is need for more comprehensive support, and the hospice model and reimbursement system we have now isn't structured to do that. Families expect that, then it's not happening, and then, they're left without feeling prepared.
Yeah, I mean, you're thinking more, I guess, in terms of what a social worker or counselor would do to reduce family conflict. But isn't there also a place for the physician? Because I think, in fact, some of the things physicians do contribute to the conflict. I mean, you mentioned the denial of death. Physicians are famous for denying death. They don't want to end care or give up on the patient.
Yeah, so physicians definitely have a role and could provide more proactive, realistic education and options for people. So that's another, again, one of those kind of contextual issues within our healthcare system, and that push to prolong life and to use life-sustaining measures, and that cure-focused approach that we have is definitely something that I think causes people to be in crisis mode then when it's not working. So yeah, there is a responsibility for physicians. The education we've been doing has been more for social workers, nurses, spiritual support people, but we have had some physicians in our audiences as well, so that's a positive sign. Yeah, any other comments? I'd be happy to also chat with people individually afterwards, but any other?
The ice flow idea may not have been so bad because it's the least painful way to die. It's like freezing.
On a positive note, though, not all families experience these things. So we'll end it on a positive note, also remembering that many families navigate death and dying and terminal illness beautifully. And sometimes families who have had all this history of drama and conflict are able to come together very nicely around an end-of-life situation, too. So we're talking about situations that can complicate things for people, but there's also the other side of the coin for many families as well.
If I could just add in reference to the physician's involvement, that was very helpful because, or if you could encourage your physician maybe to become more involved. We fortunately had a doctor who was a little more proactive with helping us realize the situation. You have an out-of-town sibling who sees your parent twice a year and wants to do everything. And the doctor explained that your mother's dying of pneumonia or congestive heart failure, and that the sibling wanted her going to surgery and getting the suction out. And the doctor took my brother, to the computer and said, we can take care of this one condition, but we're going to have these 23 other conditions to still take care of, if you pull her through this. And it was a real eye-opener for the siblings because how complicated this, they would just see them on a holiday when they're dressed up and look nice and rested. And then when we had to make some end-of-life decisions about pain medication and how long to do whatever, when we made these decisions, the physician spoke up and said, excellent, that's exactly what I would do. That's a great decision. And just those few words were so supportive because you're doing something you've never did before and you're trying to keep these core relationships intact that had been. You don't want this to be a division for the rest of your lives. And his proactive involvement contributed immensely. And the only other thing was the patient's involvement, because we had a little difference of opinion about going back to surgery with all the suctioning. And finally I said to my brother, well, my mother's still lucid and aware and awake. This is really for her to decide. So we go around her bed and ask her, and she says, oh my gosh, I'm tired, I've had enough, let me be, I want to die. And it was loud and clear. She said it 4 different ways, and that ended the discussion. And all 4 of us heard it live. So and it was helpful to have the patient and the doctor involved.
Yeah, so sometimes a patient can really play a role in stepping forward and saying, nope, this is what I want. You guys need to stop fighting with each other. So it's nice when that can happen, and it's nice when a physician can provide some clear communication and support as well.
I want to thank Dr. Boelk again for a very engaging lecture. Thank you all for coming this year to our community lecture series. And if you have any other questions, please come up.